Imagine waking up one morning to find a bright orange notice nailed to your front door, not from the city, not from the police, but from your neighbors, a group of self appointed rulers in polo shirts who decided your family didn't belong. Now imagine those same neighbors spending years making your life a living nightmare, not knowing that underneath the ground they were standing on was a secret worth more than every single house on that block combined. This is not fiction. This is the story of the Harrington family and the HOA board that made the most catastrophically expensive mistake in neighborhood history. Maplewood Estates looked like paradise: manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, matching shutters, but underneath that picture perfect surface lived something rotten. A four-member HOA board led by a woman the entire neighborhood simply called Karen. Karen didn't just run the HOA, she was the HOA. 15 years on the board, 3 consecutive terms as president. She memorized the 47-page community rulebook the way most people memorize their own names. And when Ray and Denise Harrington moved into 14 Maplewood Drive with their teenage son, Marcus, and elderly grandmother, Nana Lou, Karen smiled at the welcome barbecue, shook their hands, and went home that same night to draft their first violation notice. The Harringtons had been there 6 days. The first notice cited an unapproved garden ornament. It was a small ceramic cardinal Nana Lou had placed by the front step, a gift from her late husband of 52 years. Denise called Karen personally to explain. Karen's response: sentiment is not covered under Section 4, Paragraph 2 of the Maplewood Estates Community Standards. Ray filed the appeal. It was denied in under 24 hours. That ceramic bird was just the opening shot. Over the next 18 months, the Harringtons received 23 violation notices. Their trash bins were 2 inches too close to the curb. Marcus's basketball hoop cast a shadow onto the shared sidewalk, which Karen argued constituted an aesthetic obstruction. Nana Lou's wind chimes were classified as a noise violation. When Ray repainted their shutters the HOA's own approved color, Karen sent a notice claiming the finish was wrong, matte instead of satin. The fines stacked up: $150 here, $300 there. Ray and Denise fought every single one. They attended every board, sat in those cold plastic chairs, and watched Karen perform for her audience. 3 board members who nodded at everything she said like bobbleheads on a dashboard. The neighborhood watched too. Some felt sorry for the Harringtons. Most said nothing, because Karen had a memory like a steel trap and a violation pad she wasn't afraid to use. But what nobody knew, not Karen, not the board, not a single resident of Maplewood Estates, was that 18 months before the Harringtons moved in, Ray had quietly commissioned a private geological survey of the property. The results had been sitting in a manila folder in Ray's desk drawer the entire time. The manila folder contained a 34-page geological assessment report, and on page 11, highlighted in yellow by the surveyor himself, were 4 words that would eventually detonate like a bomb under Maplewood Estates: confirmed natural gas reserve. Not a small pocket, not a trace reading. A substantial, commercially viable natural gas deposit sitting directly beneath 14 Maplewood Drive and extending, according to the survey boundaries, under approximately 60% of the surrounding lots. Ray Harrington wasn't just a homeowner. He was, quietly and patiently, sitting on a fortune. Ray had said nothing because the timing wasn't right. Negotiating mineral rights with energy companies required silence, legal precision, and zero neighborhood interference. He needed the property undisturbed. He needed no attention. He needed exactly the kind of invisibility that Karen made completely impossible. So Ray made a decision that would change everything. He hired Marcus Webb, one of the most aggressive real estate and mineral rights attorneys in the state. Webb had never lost a case involving subsurface property rights. Not once. He reviewed the HOA's governing documents over a single weekend and called Ray on Monday morning with something that sounded almost like joy in his voice. Ray, Webb said, "These people have been illegally fining you for 14 months. The HOA's own bylaws contained a clause, buried on page 39, never enforced, likely never even read, that capped cumulative fines against any single household at $1,200 without a mandatory third-party mediation. The Harringtons had been fined $4,850. Karen had skipped mediation every single time because she never imagined anyone would check. Webb didn't just file a complaint. He filed a lawsuit, and then he made a second call, this time to Denise. His voice was quieter now, more deliberate. Tell Ray to go ahead and contact Meridian Energy, because once this lawsuit becomes a record at will, every energy company in the region is going to come knocking anyway. Better to control the conversation before Karen figures out what's underneath her feet. Denise hung up the phone, walked to the kitchen window, and looked out at 14 Maplewood Drive. The lawn Karen had cited 4 times, that the shutters Karen had flagged twice, the front step where Nana Lou's ceramic cardinal still sat, defiant and unbothered. She smiled for the first time in 18 months. The lawsuit hit Maplewood Estates like a freight train on a Tuesday morning. Marcus Webb filed against the HOA board personally, not just the organization. Karen, individually named as the primary defendant, was served at her front door by a process server at 7:43 a.m. while she was in her bathrobe. Her neighbor across the street watched from his driveway. By noon, the entire neighborhood knew. But the lawsuit was only the beginning. 3 days later, Meridian Energy Group announced a formal mineral rights acquisition agreement with Ray and Denise Harrington for the property at 14 Maplewood Drive. The number was not publicly disclosed, but the surveyor who had written that original 34-page report told a colleague who told someone else, and within a week, the whisper circulating through Maplewood Estates was $4 million. Karen's house was worth $340,000. The same week, Webb's legal discovery process uncovered something even more catastrophic. Karen had been forwarding HOA fine revenue into a discretionary community beautification fund, an account that existed in the HOA documents but had no oversight committee, no audit trail, and no receipts. $17,000 had passed through that account over 6 years. Less than $3,000 could be accounted for. The HOA's insurance provider dropped coverage immediately. The board dissolved within 10 days. 2 members resigned by email without explanation. The third, Karen's most loyal bobblehead, issued a public apology so lengthy and desperate it read like a confession. Karen hired a lawyer, then fired him, then hired another. The civil case alone exposed her to personal liability exceeding $90,000 between the illegal fines, the misappropriated funds, and the emotional claim Denise filed on behalf of Nana Lou, whose health had deteriorated sharply during 18 months of sustained harassment. The ceramic cardinal was still on the front step when the Harringtons held a small gathering to celebrate. Ray stood on that front porch and looked out at the street. The same street where Karen had once patrolled with her clipboard like a warden. Nana Lou sat in her chair by the door, wrapped in a blanket, watching the neighbors who had stayed silent for years now wave and smile as though nothing had ever happened. "You gonna move now?" Marcus asked his father. "With all that money?" Ray looked at the house, at the cardinal, at Nana Lou. "Not yet," he said. "I want Karen to watch us stay." Karen's house went on the market 4 months later. It sat unsold for 7 months. When it finally closed, it sold for $58,000 below asking price. Because by then, every buyer's agent in the county knew the address, knew the story, and priced the reputation accordingly. The Harringtons are still at 14 Maplewood Drive. The Cardinal is still on the front step. And the ground beneath their feet, the ground Karen spent 2 years trying to drive them off of, made them wealthier than she could have ever imagined in her worst nightmare. Some people spend their lives gatekeeping a world they don't even own. Ray Harrington owned under it. And that is how justice gets served. Cold, slow, and worth every penny. If this story hit different, smash that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe because we are just getting started. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from right now? Let's light up that comment section. See you in the next one.